Following breaking news this morning, I'm Bianna Goladriga.
And I'm Jim Sciutto. The story out of New York. Officials say at least 13 people are wounded. This following a shooting on a subway platform in Brooklyn. At least one person in critical condition now. Law enforcement officials say the suspect is a man who may have been wearing an orange construction vest, also may have had a gas mask. Officials investigating, I'm told, whether the suspect had and used a smoke grenade in the course of this attack.
There you see images from the subway scene there, blood on the ground there in Brooklyn, New York. CNN's Bryn Gingras is live on the scene. Give us the latest on where this investigation stands thus far.
Yeah, guys, I can tell you that I'm making multiple source calls, as are my colleagues, and there are just a lot of information that's getting sort of bounced around. So that's a big thing right now, is officials here on the ground are trying to piece together everything that happened. But let me get out of the way so you can see exactly what we're looking at here. This is a scene that stretches several New York City blocks. You can see those flashing lights. There are so many agencies here that have descended on the area. There are the FDNY, NYPD, JTTF, ATF, FBI, so you can see the scale of this investigation. What we do know from sources at this point, though, as Jim mentioned, 5 people shot, at least to the knowledge of law enforcement sources to us. One may be critical. We're hearing from the FDNY that at least 13 people may have been transported to area hospitals. NYPD just tweeting out that there are no active devices in the subway system at this point, but exactly what happened down there is still trying to be figured out. The latest information we are getting from sources that possibly this perpetrator was wearing a gas mask and an orange construction vest, and at some point a possible smoke bomb type device had gone off. But again, this is all preliminary. It is still getting worked out. We do know, though, that perpetrator, at least the one person that they are somewhat identifying, is still on the loose. So again, very active, chaotic scene here in Brooklyn that stretches several blocks as all of these agencies are working together to figure out the sequence of events of what happened and exactly really how many victims are there at this point. And we know that they would like people to call in with any information, any video to help with their efforts. Guys?
Yeah, you get a lot of indicators from the few details we know at this point, but the fact that the attacker, it's believed, used a smoke grenade, perhaps to distract, cause fear in the midst of a shooting, wore a gas mask, prepared for the effects of that smoke grenade, an orange construction vest, perhaps to come across as some sort of official there. Joseph Giacalone with us as well, former NYPD sergeant. I'm curious, as you look at the emerging details of this attack right now, and of course the top line ones are the ones we have on our screen, at least 5 people shot, a total of 13 injured at this point. Have you ever seen an attack like this with these, in your experience in the NYPD, with this combination of details as we know them at this point?
Well, believe it or not, I mean, we rarely have incidents like this. So the answer to your question is no. So it's just something that, unfortunately, they're trained for and hope that you never have to use it. So there's so many different aspects of plans about this. So, for instance, hospitals in and around the area will be notified immediately just in case there are more victims than previously reported. So they'll be on high alert. And also every hospital throughout New York City will be on alert, including those across the river in New Jersey. These are all part of the plans that we've developed over the years. One thing that the NYPD does is prepare for unfortunate situations like this. In a city this big, we know we're a target, and it just doesn't have to be with terrorism aspect. You know, I mean, you could have a mass shooting at any time, but there's been very few of these kinds of things in New York City history, believe it or not.
Thank goodness for that. I want to bring back Charles Ramsey. Charles, for much of our viewership, their cities don't have subway systems, right? I'm just curious if you can give our viewers more specific details and information on the level of work, the extra challenges facing the police department and investigators as they are trying to piece this together, but also to investigate an active scene in the subway system.
Well, I mean, it's difficult because, you know, it is the subway system. Obviously, they've shut everything down. So that particular site is secure, but you also want to check other sites as well. I heard Joe mention you know, how they train and how they plan. You do tabletop exercises, worst case scenarios. You'd have an attack in multiple locations simultaneously. What's the surge capacity of the various hospitals in the area? How many patients can you take to a given place so they can be quickly treated? How do you triage at the scene if necessary? I mean, all these things are things that take place. Now, outside of New York City, if I were still commissioner in Philadelphia, for an example, or Washington, D.C., I would be, just as a precaution, checking transportation hubs, subway systems, elevated trains, things of that nature. If nothing else, not that there's a threat that goes beyond that, but you want to give your public a sense of safety and security. They want to see a few uniforms, because when they get on these systems, having watched CNN, seeing what's going on in New York, they're going to be a little concerned. So this goes beyond just New York in terms of just doing some things to kind of reassure the public that everything is okay.
Some new information, and we're learning that the ATF, that's the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, investigates gun crimes in this country, is now on the scene of the Brooklyn shooting. Anthony Barksdale, I've heard it consistently from New York police officers, and we've heard this from public comments from the commissioner, from the mayor, about the problem with guns and gun violence in New York, where those guns come from, how easy it is to get them into the city from other states. They speak of them coming from southern states, often with more lax gun laws. As you watch what's been happening in New York with a shooting like this, but also a broader statistical rise in violent crime, what's the role of guns in that?
Guns play a significant role in what the United States is seeing in many cities, including New York. Yesterday, the president, in my opinion, gave a wonderful speech about focusing on guns and the damage that guns in the wrong hands do in the United States. We also, you mentioned the ATF, looking to get, the president is looking to appoint a new head of the ATF, which would be a significant event for such a vital agency in reducing violence in the United States. So it is a huge concern. He talked about ghost guns. He talked about the supply routes that you just mentioned. So we've got a lot of hope, but we still have to make the things happen. This isn't just going to go away overnight, but an incident like this hopefully increases the urgency on both sides of the aisle to get something done about the amount of violence in our country.
Yeah, the president also addressed the threat of guns in the wrong hands against police officers in this country as well. I want to get back to Bryn Gingras, who's there on the scene near the subway station in Brooklyn. Bryn, have you been able to speak with any eyewitnesses or commuters, or has it been completely blocked off by police officers?
Yeah, it's pretty blocked off. And of course, they shut down the subway system beyond around here because that perpetrator is still on the loose. So that's part of the investigation. Certainly, like I said before, they're asking for any eyewitnesses to come forward to help with that investigation. But yeah, again, I'll get out of the way. We are several blocks away from the subway stops that, was where the first call came in about this incident. It's still being to be determined if this actually took place before this subway stop several blocks down or what. So like I said, several blocks open here. There are probably multiple witnesses, but we are pretty far back from anyone who might have actually witnessed anything. Certainly this is a major scene, so there's going to be a lot of witnesses, a lot of video, and that's something that investigators are going to be combing through, in addition to, of course, all the security cameras that are around here, since it is very much a business area as well.
Joseph Giacalone, former NYPD sergeant. We see a lot of what's happening at the scene there. That's the response. Of course, you get the wounded to hospitals, you investigate, you try to track the gun, and so on. But the real focus now has to be on finding the suspect. So can you describe what we're not seeing right now that the NYPD is doing to try to track this person down?
Sure. So we have the temporary headquarters. Vehicles will be pulling up in and around the areas. They're also going to be in constant contact with the real-time crime center as they're downloading the videos from the NYPD cameras and trying to get that information. If the issue comes down to that this person traveled by car, then the license plate readers will be in effect. Or if they see him or her get out of the subway and jump into a ride share or a taxi or something like that, or even get on a bus, once again, license plate readers will play a role in that. So the video surveillance is always what I refer to as one of the forensic horsemen. It's a tool that helps investigators narrow these cases, specifically down something like this where the danger to the community is very high, and they're going to want to capture him as quickly as possible. So these are a lot of different aspects of this. Plus, also, you got to remember, the federal agencies are going to be involved in this, and that's why these temporary headquarters vehicles play an important role. You can take them anywhere. They're with cell phones, computers, printers, you name it, and they have the aspect of being able to control an investigation from just one street corner.